países solo México, para atraer más inversión en el sector e incrementar su participación en las cadenas de valor. La OCDE se complace en apoyar sus esfuerzos a través de este estudio dedicado a México. Hoy en día, México está bien integrado en las cadenas globales de valor de los semiconductores, especialmente en el diseño de chips y en las etapas posteriores de ensamblaje, prueba y empaquetado. México resulta atractivo para los inversores por su proximidad geográfica con los Estados Unidos, un mercado clave para estos productos. Su apertura al comercio internacional, su sólida red de instituciones de investigación y su fuerte base de talento en ingeniería, con un 17% de graduados en campos de ingeniería por encima del promedio OCDE del 14%. Gracias a estos activos y a la creciente importancia de los semiconductores en la economía moderna, dada su inclusión en productos variados, desde vehículos hasta la inteligencia artificial y la robótica, el sector está creciendo más rápidamente que el resto de las actividades manufactureras en México. Entre 2018 y 2025, la producción de la industria de semiconductores y otros componentes electrónicos aumentó un 56%, superando ampliamente el 13% del sector manufacturero en su conjunto. La inversión en el sector se ha acelerado en paralelo. La mitad de los 1.600 millones de dólares estadounidenses en inversión extranjera directa para la creación de nuevas instalaciones en el sector desde 2003 se realizó en los últimos 4 años. En el mismo periodo, estas inversiones generaron 20,000 empleos en México, contribuyendo de manera valiosa a la economía del país. Anuncios recientes como los planes de Foxconn para el establecimiento de una fábrica de superchips refuerzan el dinamismo del sector. El informe que hoy presentamos ofrece recomendaciones para que México avance hacia segmentos de mayor valor agregado en la cadena de suministro de los semiconductores, aprovechando su ecosistema ya consolidado. La primera prioridad es reducir las cargas administrativas para facilitar la integración de las empresas de semiconductores en las cadenas globales de valor. Actualmente, las empresas enfrentan varios obstáculos administrativos para importar los insumos especializados necesarios para la fabricación de semiconductores, incluidos obtener permisos por parte de distintos niveles de gobierno. Esto aumenta los costos y retrasa las decisiones de inversión. Nuestro informe propone pasos concretos para simplificar los procedimientos de importación. Por ejemplo, la creación de un programa similar al de operador económico autorizado con una lista predefinida de insumos clave relacionados con los semiconductores y el desarrollo de una ventanilla única que ofrezca información completa sobre los permisos para inversionistas extranjeros. La segunda prioridad para México es seguir desarrollando el talento humano que sustenta la industria de los semiconductores. La manufactura de semiconductores depende de una base amplia de talento, no solo ingenieros, sino también técnicos capaces de realizar tareas especializadas como moldeo, corte y soldadura por ola. Nuestro informe recomienda aumentar la matrícula en programas de educación técnica profesional de nivel medio superior. Hoy solo el 16% de los jóvenes mexicanos de entre 15 y 19 años están inscritos en estos programas, frente al 23% en promedio en la OCDE. También se recomienda reforzar las materias de ciencia, tecnológica, ingeniería y matemáticas en la educación básica y media, y mejorar la coordinación con la industria para asegurar que los planes de estudio respondan a las necesidades del sector de semiconductores. La tercera prioridad es fortalecer el ecosistema de investigación e innovación. Avanzar hacia segmentos de mayor valor agregado, incluyendo el diseño avanzado de chips, requiere una base más sólida de investigación, desarrollo e innovación. Entre 2001 y 2023, México registró 29 patentes de alto potencial equivalentes al 18% del total latinoamericano, aunque representan solo el 0,01% en México del total de la OCDE. Aprendió. Para fortalecer su ecosistema de innovación, nuestro informe propone proveer apoyo específico para la adquisición de equipos de investigación especializados, por ejemplo, mediante la exención de impuestos al valor agregado y de importación para centros de investigación certificados, mejorar los marcos regulatorios para incentivar el desarrollo de propiedad intelectual, permitiendo, por ejemplo, que los investigadores de universidades públicas conserven parte de los derechos de sus invenciones y fortalecer los vínculos entre la academia y la industria para que la investigación se traduzca más fácilmente en innovación comercial mediante el desarrollo de proyectos conjuntos o redes de investigación que unan a ambos sectores. La participación continua en iniciativas internacionales para fortalecer las cadenas globales de suministro de semiconductores será igualmente esencial. México es un miembro valioso de la red informal de intercambio sobre semiconductores de la OCDE, creada en 2023. La red reúne a altos funcionarios gubernamentales y líderes empresariales de 48 economías para intercambiar conocimientos sobre la evolución de las cadenas de suministro y experiencias en políticas sobre semiconductores. Es una plataforma única de aprendizaje entre pares y cooperación entre países que buscan desarrollar sus ecosistemas de semiconductores. Para concluir, la industria de semiconductores de México tiene un futuro prometedor y desempeñará un papel fundamental en los esfuerzos de los países de la OCDE por fortalecer y diversificar sus cadenas de suministro. Para aprovechar al máximo estas oportunidades, este informe ofrece recomendaciones prácticas basadas en evidencia que ayudarán a México a atraer inversión, fomentar la innovación y desarrollar talento. Esperamos seguir apoyándolos en sus esfuerzos por expandir la industria de semiconductores, avanzar hacia segmentos de mayor valor agregado y generar beneficios tangibles para el pueblo de México. Para finalizar, quiero reconocer el Plan México de la Presidenta Sheinbaum, un programa transformador para México. El plan está bien alineado con las recomendaciones del estudio de semiconductores. Esperamos nuestras recomendaciones puedan potenciar aún más los impactos del plan en el desempeño de la economía mexicana. Y cuenten con el apoyo de la OCDE. Muchas gracias.
Agradecemos al señor secretario general de la OCDE, Matías Corman, por sus palabras y por el acompañamiento de la OCDE en este esfuerzo estratégico para México. A continuación, cedemos la palabra al subsecretario de Industria y Comercio, maestro Vidal Llerenas Morales. Adelante, subsecretario.
Muchas gracias. Bueno, primero, felicitar al secretario general por su español, ¿no? Segundo, decir, pues que este es probablemente el primer sido capaz de reconfigurarse y encontrar las maneras, pues, de seguir exportando. Es una buena noticia para un país exportador, uno de los países grandes que probablemente tenga el muy importante y es por lo tanto fundamental que siga habiendo un crecimiento en las exportaciones y un sector exportador así resiliente. Vamos a seguir trabajando, se está trabajando de manera intensa un estudio, un policy review sobre vocaciones productivas, sobre qué vocaciones productivas y qué sectores y cómo se tienen que reconfigurar en México ante el nuevo escenario arancelario, hacia oportunidades que nos dan en sectores como semiconductores, como el eléctrico, como el de farma y otros que se van a reconfigurar en estos años. Ahí también, pues en unos meses habrá el año que entra un estudio también de la OCDE en ese sentido. Y también se ha hablado también de que vamos a platicar de cómo nos van a ayudar a ver cómo la economía mexicana se puede diversificar también, qué otras alternativas tiene en este proceso, obviamente, de cambio global del comercio para poder ir encontrando también alternativas de diversificación, que es parte de nuestra agenda, ¿no? Seguir la integración con América del Norte, profundizarla, pero también integrarla. Entonces, pues muchas gracias. Pueden agradecer pues, a todo el equipo de la gente de la OCDE por esta oportunidad, por venir a compartir con nosotros este estudio, porque pues nos da una oportunidad muy importante para insertarnos en la cadena de semiconductores que es clave para nuestro país. Muchas gracias y bienvenidos a la Secretaría de Economía. Un saludo muy cordial también del secretario Marcelo Ebrard.
Agradecemos al subsecretario Vidal Llerenas por su mensaje y por reiterar el compromiso del Gobierno de México con el fortalecimiento de una industria clave para el desarrollo tecnológico y productivo del país. Vamos a hacer una breve pausa para poder continuar con la presentación del informe. Les recordamos que contamos con servicio de traducción por si necesitan solicitarlo a un costado del escenario.
Good morning, everyone. I'm sorry that I'll be speaking English today, but it's a great pleasure to be here with you. My name is Audrey Plunk. I'm the Deputy Director for Science, Technology, and Innovation at the OECD. I think we're going to get some slides up here in a minute to present the report that we're launching today.
Vamos a interrumpir un momento a la señora Audrey Plunk, precisamente para presentar a esta, nos acompaña la señora Audrey Plunk, directora adjunta de Ciencia, Tecnología e Innovación de la OCDE. Ella nos compartirá los principales hallazgos del estudio, así como las recomendaciones estratégicas orientadas a promover el desarrollo del ecosistema de semiconductores en México. Un aplauso, por favor, para la señora Plunk. Adelante, por favor.
Great. Well, again, it's my great pleasure to be here with you this morning, and thank you to our hosts here in Mexico. I just want to start by talking about the semiconductor ecosystem in Mexico. Semiconductor ecosystem is the backbone of the modern digital electronics industry. It's the backbone of the modern economy, but it's also witnessing a significant shift in the global landscape. High concentration in critical sectors and segments of the semiconductor value chain in a limited number of regions around the world increases vulnerability to disruptions. And consequently, in recent years, many economies have sought to enhance the resilience of the semiconductor value chain by developing a local semiconductor ecosystem to strengthen their role in this strategically important sector. This creates an important opportunity for Mexico, which is already well positioned to contribute to the global semiconductor value chain. The report we're launching today analyzes the opportunities, challenges, and policy levers to support Mexico's semiconductor ecosystem and further enhance the resilience of the global semiconductor value chain. Okay, great. So first, we're going to talk about Mexico's strengths. Mexico is, as I said, already well integrated into the global electronics ecosystem and has existing strengths to draw on. On semiconductors, the industry right now is mainly focused on the design end of things and on the back end, assembly, test, and packaging end of things. Mexico benefits from openness in trade and trade facilitation, measures a skilled and experienced workforce representing a large potential for talent development and across the semiconductor ecosystem, and an innovation ecosystem with several research centers focused specifically on semiconductor and related technologies. Its geographic location is also next to semiconductor manufacturing hubs in the United States. And moreover, Mexico is home to industries that have a high demand for finished semiconductor products. These include automotive, computer equipment, aerospace, domestic appliances, and data centers. So I'm just going to highlight the key recommendations in the report. We focus in on 5 areas here. The first is around research and innovation, and this is all about realizing Mexico's potential in the national semiconductor research and innovation capacity. The second is around participation in the global value chains and increasing Mexico's participation in global value chains. The third is really tapping into that talent pool that I mentioned in skills and human capital. The fourth is improving infrastructure, notably around energy, water, transportation. And the fifth is enhancing your strategic and institutional framework for semiconductor policy. So taken together, innovation and integration in global value chains will jointly contribute to upgrading the Mexican semiconductor industry. As you can see here, I hope you can see, yeah, you can see here that already rapid growth in the semiconductor industry in Mexico relative to other high-tech industries, as well as relative to overall manufacturing. The chart on the left shows the output of the semiconductor and other electronics industries grew by 56% between 2018 and 2025. This is well above the overall manufacturing, which increased only about 13% in the same period. The chart on the right shows the value added of this industry also increased considerably by 63% between 2019 and 2023, alongside other high-tech sectors such as pharma and medical device industries. There's room to upgrade in innovation. So despite this growth, the semiconductors and the electronics industry that includes maquila factories still have untapped potential, including the potential to increase relative productivity, capital investment, and research and development and patent activity. Access to specialized equipment is a major challenge consistently highlighted by stakeholders. When we do these reviews, we don't just meet with the government, we meet with stakeholders, and this was an area highlighted consistently across our work. As you can see in this figure, the capital intensity in the Mexican semiconductor and other electronics industry is relatively low compared to other high-tech industries, with 0.06 million pesos per worker, compared to, for example, 0.42 million pesos. I think I lost you. Per worker. Is it working? Great. Per worker in the pharmaceutical sector, or 0.29 in the aerospace industries, but also below average for total manufacturing, which stands at 0.34 million per worker. This affects workers whose productivity relies on access to needed machinery, but also research centers and education institutions that need it for research and training purposes. Mexico can facilitate the acquisition of this specialized equipment through more flexible budgeting cycles and expediting imports. Other recommendations to boost research and innovation include incentivizing the commercialization of innovation, including by allowing public sector researchers to partially retain intellectual property rights on their innovations. To further strengthen academia industry linkages and facilitate the involvement of researchers in both public and private sector activity. Okay. Boosting research and innovation while facilitating trade and investment can contribute to better integration of the industry and global value chains. This figure shows that the value-added contribution of the domestic industry to Mexico electronics exports is relatively low, fluctuating around 40 to 50% since the early 2000s. For reference, this share was 44% in 2022, compared with an OECD average of 84%, which, despite being substantially higher, follows a downward trend over the same period of time. This means that a lot of the value added in the exports of the electronics sector is actually coming from abroad through imports. This reflects the nature of the Mexican electronics sector, characterized by the maquila industry, focused on re-exports. There is scope to upgrade and increase the contribution of Mexico to global value chains, particularly through semiconductor manufacturing. The OECD offers two key recommendations in this area. First, Mexico is already working toward providing foreign investors with relevant information for semiconductor investment through digital one-stop shops. However, these are not yet fully operational, and it would be important to finalize the integration of information relevant for semiconductors, including the details on permits needed for semiconductor investment and manufacturing operations in the digital one-stop shop. Additionally, semiconductors require a complex combination of inputs, most of them imported. Customs procedures for semiconductors can be time-consuming and often incur delays. Furthermore, because many semiconductor inputs are fragile or temperature or light sensitive, a fast-track customs process program could reduce the time to clear customs and reduce the risks of haphazard handling of fragile semiconductor materials and sensitive inputs during inspection at the border customs. Tapping into the talent pool and upgrading the semiconductor industry also requires skilled talent. Skills and workforce development is a transversal challenge in all countries, even those with well-established semiconductor industries. The OECD Semiconductor Informal Exchange Network convenes a dedicated focus group on skills to help guide policymakers in addressing this challenge. Our work has found that transferable skills relevant for the semiconductor exist. For example, there's proximity between skill sets in the semiconductor assembly and test and packaging and manufacturing and motor vehicles. This has two important implications. First, it's easier to retrain certain types of factory workers from the automotive industry to support semiconductor assembly, testing, and packaging. And second, efforts to develop these skills in the workforce can benefit not only semiconductors, but other industries. Data from the latest economic census show that in 2024, the semiconductor and other electronics industry in Mexico employed almost 250,000 workers, by far the largest employer among all high-tech manufacturing industries. It employs 2.8 times as many workers as the pharmaceutical industry and 5.4 times as many as the aerospace sector, and its workforce has increased from 175,000 in 2019. Semiconductors account for 25% of the overall labor market within the high-tech segment in Mexico. Most workers are located in the north, with 41% in the northeast, 32% in the northwest, and 26% in the center west. In addition, semiconductor and other electronics industry exhibits a balanced gender composition, with women representing 53% of the workforce. To meet the demand for talent, Mexico will need to expand the pool of talent in the semiconductor industry. The Secretary General mentioned in his opening remarks the high share of engineering graduates in Mexico. Mexico has 17% of its tertiary graduates in engineering fields. It's above the OECD average of 14%. And the share of female engineering graduates is also high at 10% compared with an average of 6% across the OECD. Nevertheless, challenges remain with respect to low education enrollment rates for 15 to 19-year-olds, the high share of inactive 18 to 24-year-olds who are neither employed nor in formal education, and for Mexico's high labor informality. For example, Mexico has one of the lowest education enrollment rates of 15 to 19-year-olds among OECD member countries. In 2023, just 59% of this cohort were enrolled in any form of education. Given the importance of skills and workforce development, the report lists 12 recommendations for Mexico to expand the talent pool. I won't go through all 12 of them, but I will highlight a couple. The first is strengthening STEM education. The second, reinforcing efforts to reduce dropouts, improving training for teachers and for trainers, and further enhancing the alignment between industry needs and education curricula, including in both scientific and vocational paths. Maybe get the next slide, maybe not. I don't know if we can move on to the next slide, but I'll just thank you. Enabling infrastructure is essential for a country's semiconductor ecosystem to develop and expand. The report focuses primarily on energy, water, and transport, three areas that represent important opportunities for Mexico. There we go. The darker shades on the map here represent the states with higher concentration of electronics manufacturing facilities, a total of 515 facilities concentrated in the Northwest, including Baja California, and the Center-West regions, including Jalisco. This geographic distribution underscores the importance of ground transportation across Mexico. Mexico should also continue efforts to invest in infrastructure by connecting major ports, and airports with knowledge centers and key industrial parks currently hosting or with the potential to host semiconductor facilities. It's equally important to tackle road insecurity to reduce the insurance and security costs that firms face with road transportation. Turning to utilities, the growth of Mexico's overall energy demand is estimated at 2.5% annually until 2037. Improving energy access is critical to meeting the needs of the energy market, including additional electricity demands of an expanded semiconductor ecosystem. As part of addressing this challenge, Mexico plans for renewables to reach 48% of electricity generation by 2039. That's an ambitious target. Efforts in this area should address challenges identified by stakeholders, including access, both in terms of electricity availability, the cost of connecting to distribution networks, and reliability. In terms of expansion of energy supply, Mexico could tap into the potential for renewable energy sources such as solar. Mexico should also step up its effort to integrate all regions, including Baja California, home to a semiconductor and electronics cluster, into a national electricity grid. This would help the economy move towards an increasingly efficient and resilient management of energy supply, which would also benefit semiconductor firms. In the report, we recommend actions to incentivize private investment in renewable energy, including by clarifying and streamlining the power generation permitting process and facilitating energy auto production by semiconductor and other firms. And last but not least, we'll talk about water. Water scarcity in northern states where manufacturing activity is concentrated requires high-cost treatment and recycling solutions. This report provides recommendations to help ensure longer-term sustainability and attract capital investment into water infrastructure. This includes incentivizing semiconductor and other firms to invest in cutting-edge technology for water management. Developing the semiconductor ecosystem requires action across many different policy areas, ministries, and levels of government. It requires the engagement of stakeholders from industry, academia, workers, and civil society. Mexico is already taking and has been taking action to build a competitive semiconductor ecosystem, not only at the federal level, but across several forward-leaning states. For example, 9 ministries have formalized a joint semiconductor agenda through the 2024 Collaboration Convention. These initiatives show that Mexico is moving fast and coherently to strengthen its position in the semiconductor value chain. At the subnational level, several Mexican states have developed strategies with an emphasis in different areas of the global value chain and the semiconductor ecosystem, such as in clean energy in the state of Sonora, human talent in the state of Baja California, technology and innovation in the state of Jalisco, as well as logistics and innovation in the capital city here in Mexico City, just to name a few examples. The industry and academia together are also very engaged, and I'm pleased to see here today we have representatives from Keneti who coordinate the Semiconductor Collaboration Forum that already yielded the master plan for the development of the semiconductor industry in Mexico for 2024 to 2030. A whole of government coordination mechanism encompassing representatives from different federal secretariats, Mexican state governments, and non-governmental stakeholders would allow for complementary policy initiatives across regions, ensuring an efficient allocation of public resources based on regional competitive advantages, while also ensuring that different stakeholder perspectives and underlying trade-offs are taken into account. This mechanism could be complemented by a national semiconductor strategy with measurable goals and milestones for the development of the semiconductor ecosystem and developed in consultation with stakeholders. In addition to domestic coordination efforts, Mexico engages actively in the OECD's Semiconductor Informal Exchange Network, which is a unique international forum for the exchange of semiconductor industry data and policy information. The OECD will continue supporting Mexico's ambitions, policy design, and implementation efforts through this network. And in conclusion, I just wanted to give you a glimpse of the report. It's rich. There's a lot of information there. I encourage you to scan the QR code, to download it, to get a full extent of the analysis of Mexico's ecosystem and the recommendations that are there. I trust the following panels, of which there are 2, first focused on research and innovation, and the second focused on talent and workforce development, will help you dive deeper into the recommendations and the substance in this report. Thank you very much.
Agradecemos a la señora Audrey Plonk, directora adjunta de Ciencia, Tecnología e Innovación de la OCDE, por esta detallada presentación y por el profundo análisis que hoy se pone a disposición de todos los actores aquí presentes. Con esto vamos a concluir esta primera parte del programa. Enseguida continuaremos con los paneles de expertos, pero tomaremos una pausa de 10 minutos. Aprovechamos para agradecer la asistencia de los medios de comunicación que nos acompañaron en este segmento.